Welcome to the May 22nd, 2018 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion carries. The agenda is presented as written. We have the minutes of the April 24th, 2018 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion carries. The minutes are approved of April 24th, 2018. We have our first Zoning Board of Appeals appeal is the appeal number 18-003. It's for Mr. Kenneth Moore of 9510 Horse Mill. Has requested a public hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals to expand a non-conforming structure and that does not meet the required front yard setback on Lot 32B1 of Supervisors Grosse Ile Subdivision Number 3 as recorded in Wayne County Records, Township of Grosse Ile, County of Wayne, Michigan, also known as 9510 Horse Mill. Mr. Moore, are you here? Can you come up and give us your name and your address?
My name is Ken Moore. I live at 9510 Horse Mill Road. It's at the intersection of Horse Mill and Keith.
You are the owner of the property?
I am.
Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have Brian come up and give us an overview of the project. Mm-hmm. After that, then you can come up and give us your reasons why we should consider the appeal and approve the appeal.
Okay. Come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hang on one sec. Oh, all right. Just have to crouch down tonight. All right, first case this evening, 9510 Horse Mill Road. This is our subject property right here. It's at the northwest corner of Keith and Horse Mill. Zoning of the site is R1B. Thank you. Applicant is before you tonight seeking two variances related to the expansion of a non-conforming residence. Pertinent ordinance sections for your consideration are 3.5 and 18.6. So first, a quick look at the site plan. So this is oriented such that north is to the right. So this is the Horse Mill frontage. This is the Keith frontage. Here's the existing residence, which provides only a 20-foot street front yard setback from Keith. I didn't put the existing conditions plan in here, but there's also an older, large detached accessory building in the sort of northeast corner of the property that is non-conforming for multiple reasons. You can see it in the aerial view. That structure is to be demolished to accommodate the new build. So on this drawing, this is I should have colored this in. I apologize. So this proposed breezeway and proposed garage area, this is what they are proposing to add. Rear yard setback is fine. Side yard setback is fine. Spacing between principal residences is fine. The issue with the proposed structure is it provides only a 22-foot street front setback from Keith. So that's really that's the second of the two issues we're looking at tonight, but that's the way the proposal is situated. This is just a look of the elevation view that was included with the plans. Here's the proposed garage. Here's the single-story proposed breezeway connection to the existing residence. So the first item in terms of our variance request is section 18.6A. I know you all are familiar with it, but I'm going to walk you through it again. Has a three-pronged test for a permitted expansion of a non-conforming building. The first is that it can be non-conforming on one side only. The second is that the non-conforming setback that's provided is at least 90% of the minimum requirement. And the third is that any proposed addition or expansion has to comply with current dimensional standards. In this case, the project fails that test, hence the need for a variance to expand the nonconforming residence. Secondarily to that is the fact that the R1B district has a 40-foot street front setback, and as I mentioned moments ago, the proposed building is situated with a 22-foot front yard setback from Keith. So those are the two variances that are needed, or that are essentially the request of the petitioner for the project. So, summary of my review letter, point one, the residence cannot be expanded without at least one variance. So the idea of expanding a nonconforming building, that test cannot be met. So if they want to do anything to this other than internal renovation or changing off the siding or the facade materials, they would need a variance to expand this in any way, shape, or form. The proposed addition does provide a slightly larger front yard setback than the existing nonconformity. You can see here it is pushed back a little bit. So the garage is at about 22 feet, whereas the residence is at 20. And the way it's depicted, the breezeway connection is maybe another half foot or foot in kind of recessed in between the two, if that makes sense. In terms of alternatives, in this case, the obvious alternative is to increase the street front setback. What happens with that is the way this lot is configured and the way the yards have all been laid out, pushing this back pushes it into the rear yard. So we're still talking about a variance potentially for an attached building. And I guess my thought was that by doing so, it does also push it back whereby, you've got this neighbor to the north here with a waterfront lot that goes all the way back, and building something back in this area, albeit the aerials show a lot of trees in there. They may still exist, so maybe there's not much of a view anyway. But pushing that back, to me, had the potential to impact that neighbor. So that's sort of where I came from in terms of the permitted alternatives. The other alternative would be to simply redo another detached accessory building, though it could not be as large, it could not be connected to the residence, it would have to be much smaller, and then it would have to be situated, it would have to be slid back and away from 6 foot on the side would be fine, but it would have to be reduced in size and scope ultimately. I already mentioned that the nonconforming detached building would be removed as a result of the project. For the property itself, this individual parcel at the Horse Mill street front, it is slightly deficient in lot width for a street front for a for a R1B corner lot. For corner lots, you're supposed to have 100 feet. They're 97. 98, little deficient, does widen out as you move north, however. So in this particular area, they do actually exceed that 100-foot lot width. So if we were being technical, we would say the property does meet the lot width. It is not a non-conforming property. Which brings me to my next point. There are a whole host of calculations on the cover sheet that are no disrespect or offense to the applicant or his project team. The majority of the numbers are incorrect. We've kind of gone through because I thought this had the potential to become another issue, be it either for ZBA or be it for Planning Commission. So we went ahead and, while we don't normally do this, we went ahead and ran all of the lot coverage calculations to determine whether or not this project would comply. That's normally a step that is taken at the time of permit submittal. That's part of the zoning officer's review of the project, if you will. But we felt it was important to try to get some clarification tonight whether there was going to be a hiccup down the road for this applicant. So we went ahead and ran those numbers. The lot area shown on that is 14,000 something or other. It's a non-conforming number. That's incorrect. Township assessor has it as over a 16,000 square foot lot. It is a conforming lot. When we run the calculations for both floor area and lot coverage ratios, the floor area is met with room to spare. The lot coverage number is essentially right on the number. So the resulting lot coverage of this project, based on township assessor numbers, would be 17.5%. The maximum for this property is 17.5%. So they are right at it, which is a far better scenario than what's presented on the cover sheet. So, closing point. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, question. Did the applicant know that it didn't meet that? I mean, based on his configuration and his calculations, did he know that?
I don't know. You'll have to ask him that as soon as I'm done. Yeah, I think it was, I won't say they were typos. There was probably just some differing information, but regardless, the accurate numbers, the numbers that we use, we always rely upon the township assessor numbers. That's because that's our most consistent database, if you will. So that's really what we rely on. So that's where we got all of our information. Closing point is just tied to all of the remaining standards that I haven't really touched upon. I don't believe that approval in this case would adversely impact public safety, land values, neighborhood character, supply of light and air, traffic flow, or have an impairment upon future development of adjacent properties. I don't believe it puts the neighbor to the north in any odd circumstances. We're not encroaching into the side yard for their property, which would be the limiting factor for them. So there's no issue with that. Really don't believe that ultimately there would be much impact there. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Do you have any questions of Brian from the board?
Brian, do we know the existing two-car that's there that's going to be demolished, what the setback is on that building as it exists today? In other words, is this new garage going to be further back?
It is further back. If you bear with me, I think I can find it on the prints. But yeah, it's actually quite close to the roadway now. I believe it's closer than the residence is. So this proposal would actually would increase, obviously, the setback for that structure as well. There's an arrow, but there's no actual number. But it's, yeah, it's, I mean, it's easily 5 feet. There you go. I think that's, and it's also 4 feet off the side lot line, and it's also encroaching into the street front yard. So that structure has at least 3 reasons to be considered non-conforming on its own.
With regard to that structure, he makes a comment that the structure predated the street.
Predated the street.
Yeah, seriously.
It does.
It does. So, does that matter?
It's under today's standards. That's the whole reason we have non-conforming provisions, is we don't deem things illegal that were once compliant or that we didn't regulate, and by virtue of our physical changes, either by ordinance or by development patterns, they were made non-conforming.
But that is true.
You have any other questions from the board? Mr. Moore, you want to come over and come up and give us your spiel on why we should approve the variance?
Well, as stated, number one, its current structure is only 5 feet off of the existing versus 40 or even 20. So this would be more in line with the rest of the house. It will definitely, I brought my next door neighbor, in case there's some questions for him too, but we've talked about this. It will help.
That's your neighbor to the north?
Yes, that's Bill Lopez. So it will help improve the property value for the rest of the street too. Might as well make everybody else. I don't know, it's just something I've been wanting to do for a long time, so I figured I'd go through the right process, get the plans, everything pulled together, and that's why I'm here.
So you said in your request for the appeal, you said give all unusual conditions applicable to granting of the appeal. At the time of the original structure, there was no road. So the reason you put that down there was just for informational purposes?
Sure. This house was built by Angus Keith. So the road is Keith Street, which was put in after he was passed away. And so this was probably a path that led to the garage, which became a street, which then became, they sold off the rest of the subdivision. So that's just the history of the whole place.
The house is a historical house, correct?
Yeah, so the only
It's
thing
registered. Is it registered?
it is registered, and the only thing I'm doing is the breezeway to the garage. I'm not touching anything
Not
with the
touching
structure.
the original house at all.
No, just the breezeway that's on the back of the house. I'm just going to expand that one out. So,
So basically, you're leaving the main house structure untouched.
yes.
All you're doing is adding the garage and the breezeway.
And I'll have the same cedar shake on the garage to match the rest of the house, so you can see that on the front page. Oh, no, it's awesome. I like old houses. I'd never touch that thing.
Got an old one.
Yes, 1862.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
And just in that same area where it says there was no road there before, it says taking an existing non-conforming structure and moving back.
Yes,
The garage that's there, you're demolishing that, right?
correct.
So,
Yes. Yeah, it's hard to see, but the
you're building a new garage, right?
yes,
Move-
moving it back to be in line with the house.
Those words mean that the
Yes.
new one is going to be moved back. not
Right.
the existing.
Right. The existing one's going to be torn down. It's hard to see with these bushes, but the garage you can see is real close to the house. If you can see in that picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I've been there. I think.
Okay.
So can you tell me also the logic with the basement?
All right. Well, I collect I collect pinball machines.
Okay.
I'm running out of space, and there's just me. So I'm not going to take the money with me. So I might as well enjoy it while I can. Then that's the truth.
Probably storage for your pinball.
Hey, you got to have a hobby or two.
So you're not selfish.
No, I'm not married. So I have nobody to leave it to, so I might as well just enjoy it.
All right.
Any other questions for Mr. Moore? Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience that wants to come up and speak about the project? Okay. Given that we have none, I think we'll vote on your project, Mr. Moore. Okay. You can go back and sit down.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion on the variance project?
I move that the variance for the property on Horse Mill be approved.
Support.
Are there any addendums to it that you want to put on or not? No.
I think he's improving a lot of the nonconformity, so that is good. And if you've been out and seen it, there's enough coverage and everything between the properties. There's no problems there.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have support? Okay, we have support. Now we take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing no opposition, the appeal is approved. Mr. Moore, it's approved. Thank you.
Mr. Moore, do you have mechanical pinball machines? Oh, okay. I got a couple of the, yeah. It's nice though. They're fun. Oh, I only have a couple, and my grandkids keep them busy.
Okay, moving on, we have appeal number 18-004. This is for Mr. Mark Lasky of 21248 East River. Has requested a public hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals to construct an accessory structure on lot number 1 of Wendell subdivisions as recorded in Wayne County Records, Township of Grosse Ile, County of Wayne, Michigan, also known as 21248 East River. Mr. Lasky, are you here? You want to come up and, like the previous case, we're going to have Brian come up and give an overview, and then you can come up and give us your reasons why we should approve the variance, okay?
Sure. Thank you again, Mr. Chair. All right, next case tonight, one sec. 21248 East River Road. So unfortunately, the aerial photos are a bit behind on this one. This is a new residence that is under construction, but very close to completion, is hopefully a fair statement, I believe. So we'll give you that one. So it's this guy right here. And again, there's a new residence under construction. This is the west side of East River, north of Church. So this area is oriented north is to the right. Site and surroundings are all zoned R1A, single family. This is a single variance request related to the side yard setback for a detached accessory building. So while the new residence is almost completed, the applicant is proposing to build a detached accessory building in the rear yard of the site. Because the site is substantial in terms of its size, the accessory structure is also a pretty large one, but it's all within ordinance save for the side yard setback, which I'll get to. So pertinent section tonight is 19.11, which regulates detached accessory buildings. Again, I apologize for these photographs of plans, but this is the best I've got right now. So Lori, we have to have people start submitting PDFs. Okay. Thank you. I think you get the gist of it, though. Really a magnificent piece of property, quite large. Here's the residence that is finishing up construction, and then you move way to the back, and here's the proposed detached accessory building. Here's a look at the elevations around the proposed building. As I mentioned, it is compliant with everything save for the side setback, so the building height is in line, the size is in line, and the yard location is in line, as is the spacing between the residents. You can see there's a pretty substantial amount. More to the point, I put my little table together. So we're at 1,327 square feet, not well within, but it's certainly within the 1,400 max. It's in the rear yard. It's over 120 feet spaced from the existing or from the residence, so no issue there. Height is right at 17 feet. So the pickle that we find ourselves in with this one is that when you have the larger property, you are allowed larger detached accessory buildings, but the setbacks change on you. So in a conventional lot with a conventional accessory building, there's 6-foot setbacks. In this case, because of the size, the setback on the side has to be the equivalent of the building height. So what we have here is, because it's a 17-foot tall building, that side yard setback is also supposed to be 17 feet. So that's really our focus here tonight. So I think you got the gist from my letter. So I'm just going to cover kind of these 3 quick points, or 4 quick points, and then I really think it's important that we turn it back over to the petitioner tonight, because I think we've got to hear from him in terms of some rationale and the justification, something to support this from a ZBA standpoint. So just based on our review of the submittal, what we see at face value on paper, and there were no supporting documents with this, so I didn't have the privilege of knowing what the petitioner was thinking. There may be something about the property that is unique. There may be some burden that's placed upon him I'm unaware of, and I want to give him the opportunity tonight to speak to those things. So that's my starting point. Is I don't see a practical difficulty in this particular case. The petitioner certainly has the opportunity tonight to speak to that, and I encourage him to do so. So if there is something that has created a difficulty for his project, there's something that he believes may be burdensome to him, then that's something he's going to have to put forth to the board tonight. Subsequent to that, similar comment is that I don't see anything unique or unusual about this property. It meets or exceeds all of the dimensional standards for an R1A lot. It's it's well over an acre in area, so it's a substantially sized R1A lot. So again, I would request that the applicant present something to you tonight in terms of the rationale behind this. What is unique about this situation that would support a 7-foot side yard setback variance? And then sort of the combination of those two is that in the absence of a practical difficulty or a unique circumstance, the project fails to meet the substantial justice test. So that's kind of the third really important ZBA standard for practical difficulty. And what the substantial justice test amounts to is it's a fairness test. Is granting the variance going to be fair to the owner and also fair to other owners in the area? And in the absence of a difficulty or unique condition, my opinion is that it would not be fair, because then we're granting variances out of convenience and not out of need. So those are kind of the three really important points based on the review standards. From my perspective, the alternatives would be just to increase the setback. I'm not sure, again, if there's something that is restrictive in terms of that extra 7 feet, shifting that slightly south. The flip side to that is because the setback is related to the building height could come down. And then sort of, my closing comment on that, I think, is that it could be a combination of the two. I mean, if there's a pinch point there, maybe the setback could be increased a little, maybe the roof height could come down a little. Whether or not you all believe that to be reasonable or not is up to you. I merely put it forth as some suggestions that would be alternatives that would bring the project into compliance. All that aside, when you look at this lot, you look at the surrounding properties, I really don't believe that this 7-foot setback difference is going to have any impact on neighboring properties. I don't believe it's going to have any impact on traffic flow, infrastructure, light and air. It's not going to impair development in this area. This is a built-up area of the township, and you can even see by the aerial photos. I mean, this is an area that has really large homes with really large accessory buildings on really large lots. So it is absolutely in keeping with the neighborhood character. My biggest concern with it is that I'm just failing to see kind of that practical difficulty or unique circumstance in this situation.
You know about on this picture where this proposed site is?
Well, behind, it's in between the three trees.
He's more north.
We got something. So here's the overhead line.
Okay.
I'm envisioning is roughly here, so it's going to be back here somewhere.
Not that far back.
It's quite a distance back. Yeah, just looking at the site plan, that's about the best point of demarcation I have, is that overhead line that crosses through these lots, and it would appear to me, unless that's just a Google Map glitch, that it would be, again, in this case, it'd be west of that overhead line.
40 feet across.
40? Okay. So I'm just eyeballing, but, it's up in here somewhere. Quite a distance away from, again, anything around it. And if the trees are preserved, again, there's going to be some screening protection. That's why this one, I'm a little bit torn. I don't think it affects or impacts anyone or anything, but I can't stand before you here and tell you that I see, what the burden is, what's difficult, or what the unique circumstance is at this point. So, but I definitely, again, we have the applicant here for a reason, and that's his opportunity to speak to you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Questions for Brian? Okay, Mr. Lasky, you want to come up and you heard Brian and his
yes, I listened very
overview
well.
of where he's at. And the other thing is, when you made an application out, you said give all unusual conditions applicable to the granting of the appeal. And then you just put a note: need a variance of 7 foot, which really is not identifying unusual conditions or anything. It's just saying you need 7 foot.
Okay, so when I sent my plans in for the house, the setback, could have been 6 feet, and trying to be a good neighbor, I pushed the house 10 feet from the lot line. In the process of the picture, he's showing you where the proposed building is going to be. Behind that property, so behind that lot line, I own the lots behind there that will never be built on. The only access to those lots, there's 2 lots back there, is off of Wendell Court. So I own another 150 feet behind the property line that you're looking at, and then I go north. That lot's 200 feet wide, so it goes. My property is approximately 100 feet, and then it goes 100 feet to the north. So my contention is that since no one's ever going to be behind me to build, no one's going to look at this building, the building is going to be far enough behind. I wanted to keep the building in line with the current garage that I have, so I didn't want it sticking more inside the yard. So, and there were some trees that I would not have to touch because there's not a lot of trees on the lot, and I had to cut one down on the way in. So basically, I was asking because I didn't figure 7 feet. For me, it was important to keep it on the same lot line as my current garage, but I felt that asking for 7 feet was worth the opportunity to say, listen, this is how I want to do it. The house I'm building is very nice. The garage is not going to be a garage that looks like, or a structure that's going to look like, that doesn't fit with the house motif. So all in all, I thought it wasn't much to ask for, and where it was going, and the distance it was from the other structure. And like I said, one of the neighbors to my north, he's even conversed that he had no problems with where the building was going to go. And I stayed inside all the other parameters, which is less than 1,400 square feet, less this. So I thought I did everything except hit the 7 feet, which is about half a foot taller than I am. So I don't think that's a real big number, but it is. So that's my point. So.
You drew up the plans for the structure. Was the garage included in the overall plans, the initial plans?
I can't answer that question. It was always in when I bought the property. When I bought the property from Joe Daly, it was always going to be there. There was always going to be a building in the rear of that property.
Yeah, but you didn't have it plotted or planned.
I can't answer. I can't honestly answer that.
So this was an afterthought, putting that garage there.
Possibly.
You knew the ordinances.
No, I did not know the ordinance.
You didn't know the ordinance?
Well, I mean, I didn't know this ordinance. I didn't know there was a 7-foot, a 17-foot setback instead of a 10-foot setback. I did not know that. In fact, I actually, when I originally set the first set of plans up, I actually wanted to build 1,600 square feet. And I was told I couldn't do that unless I got a variance on that. So then I followed that up with a variance to be under the 1,400 square foot scenario. But like I said, originally I wanted to build 16, and I'm saying to myself, well, I own the property. I'm not doing anything that, is going to make this, But like I said, I went back. I was told that that's not available, that I could not build 1,600 plus square feet. So I fell within the parameters. And like I said, the only thing I'm not hitting is the one variance. I'm doing everything else according to what is required.
Well, as I'm listening to you, so the unusual condition would be that you had the existing dwelling, you had that already built, and then you wanted to conform to be in line. You wanted the garage to be in line with the existing dwelling.
That's correct, sir. Right. Because that way, when you look at the building, it'll look more in line instead of being more toward the middle of the yard. So there's some aesthetics involved too, because I'm spending quite a bit of money to do this.
You have anything else? Okay. From the board, do we have any questions from the board?
Just a quick question for clarity. Did the lots get, I guess, all combined, so it's one
No.
big lot?
No, they're separate.
So just for clarity for me, so the statement, and the board can correct me if I'm right or wrong, so it can still be built upon by anyone else who buys it if it's sold down the line. So the statement that it will never be built is inaccurate. There's always that possibility. There has been no lot combined or anything, and if
Where would the access be? Where would you get the access to the
Wendell Court.
from Wendell Court?
There were 4 lots.
So those are still sellable in the future. I mean, okay.
Yeah.
So do you have, I guess, do you envision them turning into non-buildable because you're going to combine all these lots? Otherwise, they always stay buildable to a certain degree.
Well,
I'm trying to get
as
clarity on your
long,
statement.
let's put it this way, as long as I'm green side up, I'm not going to sell the lots, I'm not going to build on the lots, and I think that, family members would probably honor my wishes, because it's not, like I said, when I had the opportunity to buy the lots behind me to make my lot look like an L, I said, there's trees back there, there's some density, it keeps the neighbors that are back there, they basically can't see through when the foliage comes in. So, as far as I'm concerned, they're not going to be built on. So, and financially, there's not a reward out there that would make me say, I financially would need the wherewithal to sell those lots. Those lots are, like I said earlier, maybe not to the specification of tying the 2 lots together, but the way they stand today, as long as I'm around, they'll be that way.
Those lots are buildable, do we know? Are they?
They're not buildable unless you put water and sewer back there, which I'm not going to do, but.
Structure, you have to put infrastructure back there.
Right. But there is one house, as soon as you turn into Wendell Court, there is a house there. I'm not sure if it's a Park Lane address house or not, but it's, so.
That's to the north of pulling in, isn't it?
If I pull in my driveway, it's.
Pulling in, yeah, or pulling in from Wendell Court, I believe the house is on the north.
No, it's actually, it would be on the south. When you pull it, it's on the south. It's
Okay.
a little cul-de-sac back there, but like I said, from my standpoint, I was happy.
There is no infrastructures for the Wendell Court. Do they have water and sewer and electricity?
I'm not sure
coming
it's
back?
tapped back there, so I think that's going to be whoever, if anybody, because I do see a sign across from where my lots are. I do see a for sale sign, but I would think whoever's going to either buy that lot that's for sale back there would have to be able to put sewer and water in, because they're not, like I said, they're not basically a buildable lot right now.
Mr. Lasky, I have one
Yeah,
question.
sure.
About these lots, but from your drawing, it appears that they're almost 133 feet from the back of your proposed structure anyways. It's not like this proposed structure is near those lot lines. It's 133 feet away. Is that?
I'm not sure if that's exactly the footage, but if you say it is, that's.
It's on the drawing
Oh,
here
okay.
from the pink thing that Brian had up earlier. It's 132 feet, .72, so almost 133 feet is the lot line for the lots on Wendell Court.
Okay.
Okay.
So Mark, there's a letter in here from your neighbor, I guess, to the north, Greg Carmazon?
Yeah.
I'm not
Greg?
sure if he's supporting your request or unsupporting your request.
Well,
Have you read it?
Yeah, I think if I read the letter, I think the first part, I feel he supports it, and then he wasn't happy, and then at the end he kind of supports it again. So it's hard to.
It sounds like he's saying he tried a similar thing and it was rejected, but then maybe not rejected because he pulled it out before
Right.
some final vote after the second meeting. But it's very confusing. And he also mentioned some trees. Is that part of your?
I don't think the trees are. I'm not sure where he's going with that.
Okay,
but,
okay. You're similarly confused as I am. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could just interrupt real quickly. It's a very lengthy letter. If you just read the first sentence, it states, "This letter is to express my support for Mr. Lasky's request to the Township Board of Appeals."
And in fact, the bulk of the letter is about Mr. Carmazon's, not about the, but
I
that's
stopped
Greg.
at the first sentence. I'd have been all right.
Going on his letter, he says that he's satisfied with your attempts to alleviate. There was some concern about a water issue. And there's a French drain in your drawing, the same drawing we referred to with the pink square. does that French drain just accommodate the water near the house, or does it go further back to the accessory
Well,
structure?
by the time I'm finished, I'm going to make sure there's plenty of drainage there, so neither the house to the north or the house to the south will have any problems with water. There is a somewhat of abundance of water, but I'm going to remedy that. I've talked to Matt Scott about it. He's a local landscaper. He's done all my work for over 30 years on this island. So he said he can take care of that. So I'm not really concerned about it. When I'm done, it'll be very nice.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Where's that water going to go?
In the river.
Gonna-
Well, he mentions in the letter that he actually met with your architect, Mr. Howie, and
Correct.
Mr. Howie explained it in detail how it was going to get to the river. Is that right, Mr. Howie? Oh, it does today. Okay.
Okay, do we have any other questions of the applicant? Okay, at this time, do we have any anybody in the audience that wants to speak to the project?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Robert Howie. I reside at 2945 Riverside Drive in Trenton. I'm the architect as well as the builder for this project. So what I'd like to do is, if I could, I've put together just a quick elevation. If I could just pass it out real quick.
I'm not sure how he does it. He wants to put that on the overhead. Can he do that? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, we all have it now. Well, the other people can't see it.
Or goes by here.
I just put it on there. Of course, we got to tell them how to turn it on, though. That's where I fall apart.
Ask Angita. Okay, yeah. Yeah, if they're, you just get the.
I'm going to ask the tech to see if they can get it on.
Anyway, if I could just,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay. Thank you.
Hey, magic. What's happening?
Look at that.
Thank you. So what we're proposing is a 7-foot setback. I mean, we comply with, we're less than the 1,400 square foot maximum allowable. It is accessory structure. And the elevation where it says proposed garage variance required, that's exactly what we submitted last month. So that's at having the garage at the center point of the roof line would be 17 foot, which required the garage to be set 17 foot off the property line. Like Mr. Lasky stated, we're proposing to put the proposed accessory structure garage right in line with the existing house. The elevation on the lower left-hand corner says proposed garage full compliance. That's leaving the garage at the 10-foot line, but that's having the roof 10 foot. So when you take a look at the two structures, again, the drawing to the right, in this area right here, that's what the garage looks like. Clearly, there's some hardship trying to justify that with the lower roof line, that it, complements the new structure. And I think that's important too as well. If we go back up to the first one, the proposed garage with the variance required, there has already been some compromise in there. The existing home that we built has the 12/12 roof pitch. In order to comply with the 17-foot, we've actually reduced this roof slope right here from the 12/12. Some people probably wouldn't pick it up. I mean, some people with a good eye would pick that up. So there has been some compromise. When they say, what's the big deal? By moving that the structure over to 10 foot to align with the house, you're picking up 7 feet. 7 feet on 100 feet, that's 7% of the backyard you're going to be able to enjoy. Looking back, We comply with 11 of the 14 items that was identified by the consultant. Keep in mind that we're proposing that this structure, we could lower the roof and put it right at the 6-foot property line. And again, we want to be good neighbors with the neighbor to the north, allow proper drainage between all those lots back there. As you move west, it's low, and it's soggy, and it's very difficult to maintain and whatnot. So we didn't want to do that. We pushed the house 10 foot, and we'd like to keep the new proposed structure at 10 foot. Also keep in mind the location. This is not next to a major thoroughfare. There's nobody that's off of East River that's going to be able to see it. There's no side roads they're going to be able to see it. If there's any issue at all, it would be the neighbor to the north, in which he's clearly stated that he is approves the proposal. So we would ask for a favorable review. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
I guess following up with that statement, so if I'm looking at the house from East River and there is no variance granted, then the structure is completely behind the house, if I'm thinking correctly. So you're not going to see it anyways.
Correct.
So I'm struggling with the importance of the 7-foot variance if I'm not going to see the thing anyways. Why do I need to do a variance if my logic is correct?
Well,
because you just stated we're not going to see it anyways. Your words.
so what I'm talking about, if it was off a major thoroughfare,
It was pretty busy.
okay, well, this is set back, right? So by allowing it to go at the 10-foot property line, I mean, 7 foot on 100 feet.
I get that part, but without this variance, that thing's completely behind the house. I for sure won't see it.
Either way, you would not see it.
One way it's in line.
If you look where East River is and how many foot it's set back, you wouldn't see it.
Not going to see it. I'm struggling with convincing me, and I can't speak for the rest of the team, why it's so important to be granted.
Well, I think, like the homeowner stated, he wanted to build the garage in line with the house.
Okay, that's
Right? And we'd like to keep the existing house and have the height similar so that the new structure complements the house.
Basically, I mean, I can understand what Steve is saying. You're not going to be able to see that structure from East River, and so it's hard for me to accept granting a variance when the underlying reason is probably pretty hard to understand. I mean, from a standpoint of, you're talking purely aesthetics when you look at, you're asking us to approve it based on aesthetics. It's got the same pitch line as the original dwelling, as the main dwelling. Basically, it's an aesthetics question, right?
It is. It is clearly.
I guess one more follow-up. So your drawing that you just handed out, the bottom left or the top left, you could still meet the aesthetics you want, not the site, but the size, by pushing it all the way in more behind the building. It doesn't have to be as shrunk as the bottom.
If we were to leave it at 17 foot. Right.
You have any other questions?
I have a question. Mr. Lasky said he didn't understand, words to that effect, what the ordinances were. So you didn't advise him, or you didn't know?
Well, when we put the drawings together, then that's when we clearly, when I was doing the ordinance check, that's when we determined the size. He had a size in mind. He asked me, say, can you put some drawings together for that? And then once we determined what the size is, and we went back and checked all the different requirements out for the ordinance, then that's when we went back and said, well, we're going to have to shrink it down to less than 1,400 square feet.
No, the setback ordinance.
Oh, yeah, and that's when we picked it up. Oh, yeah.
So you didn't,
Well, no, I'm the one that found out about it. Yeah, absolutely.
and you advised your client.
Yeah. Yeah, in the beginning, we didn't know about it, but once we started doing the actual drawings for it, the construction drawings, and that's when we got to did the code search and do the ordinance search.
Yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Howie, we have the two, one at 17 and one at the conforming. Could you do anything in between without, could you bring that roof down, not so it'd be as squat as the full compliance, but bring it down less than 17 so your variance would be less?
Yeah, it would still be noticeable. So
It would be.
Yeah, it would be considerably. I mean, I think it's quite obvious that the lower left-hand corner
Right,
very
I mean, there's a
squatty.
difference, yeah.
It just doesn't complement the new structure.
But that lower left-hand corner is to keep it so the site is still, it's all even on the side.
He could, with that, he could stay at 10 feet.
Correct. But that's the only reason.
Still look like he wants to build it, but it would just be 7 feet more over.
I believe if the importance is the size of the structure and all that, and whatever's going to go in there, I think that can be accomplished. It's just not going
Yeah.
to be with a variance.
Right,
At the
right.
10
So either the size of the structure is more important than the variance,
Or the location.
or the location, and only,
So, and if aesthetics is so important, as I'm getting the feeling that what you're saying is, then setting it back 17 foot is going to give you the aesthetics. I mean, I guess I have a hard time identifying with that logic that if you want the aesthetics and you're not willing to give up the 7 foot, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And you want to stay in line. You don't. I mean, that to you is the utopia. Actually, that structure staying in line with the main structure. And if that's the case, then you want to go with the lower pitch line. Do we have any other questions?
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I guess the question I have for Mr. Lasky, you want to come up? I guess my first thought is, are you willing to compromise and move it back 17 foot? Are you willing to do that?
If this board tells me that I'm not allowed to do what I've asked, then I will move it to exactly the 17 feet that you request me to do. I've asked if this is possible. If it's not possible, I will build it according to your ordinance. I've built the house when we first did the structure of the house. I made sure I followed every rule of the thumb. I kept my porches in line with the neighbors. I mean, the whole 9 yards. I've done everything. This is the third house I've built on this island. I've lived on this island for 35 years. I have a house on the golf course right on the 12th hole and built that one. And I've done everything always by the book. I'm going to do this by the book, but I spent money to ask for a variance, and that's why I came to this group of gentlemen today to ask for this variance. And if it's not acceptable, I'll live with it. I'll move the thing 17 feet. And one of the gentlemen said, well, what's the big deal? Well, you know what? It's a big deal to me, okay? I'm 67 years old. This is what I want. I don't personally think I'm doing anything wrong, and it's my property. So that's what I requested, and that's what I'm hoping for. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, do we have anybody in the audience other than the architect that wants to speak to this? Okay, hearing none. Do we have any other discussions from the board? Did you want to have anything else to say? Hearing none, I think we can entertain a motion. Can we have somebody entertain a motion, put a motion out on the table?
I move that the variance be denied.
Support.
We have a denial and a support. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion.
Could I just ask that the motion maker and the support, could we just include the rationale for the denial, just so that it's clean on the record?
Yes, we can include the rationale. What would the rationale be?
That the structure meet the ordinance, that it be 17 feet off the lot line as required.
Yeah, I would add that there's really no unusual conditions that were presented. Would you agree with that? Yeah. Okay. Brian?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair. The absence or lack of a practical difficulty and unusual.
That's what makes it tough on this one, because there's certainly enough property, but it doesn't fit within what we should be doing.
Okay, so we have the motion and we still have the support. And okay, can we take a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We have one in opposition. The favors, the piece in favor is for the denial of the appeal, so the appeal is denied. Thank you. Okay, do we have any comments or any miscellaneous that we want to cover? You know, other than what we talked, Lori, what we talked about before, I'm going to go and see if we have any more applications, because I want to fill the board, get that done. So I'll be talking to the people about seeing if there are any live people that we can tie into. Okay, so I'll do that.
New members?
New members, yeah. So
Jim, do you know of any? Do you know of any that have put in?
Bob Harrison submitted a request. Like, you guys know Bob?
I didn't. I don't recall getting a copy of that.
But he didn't get any feedback.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll if you want to help me, Jim.
I'll be in tomorrow. I'll ask. I'll find out, and I'll let you know.
I told him he had to go to the township supervisor. Is that right?
No.
Who does he go to?
It just puts it in with Margie or with or the clerk.
He talks to Mark.
Yeah. So it should be there. I'll talk to Margie tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll see. Do we have anything for next month? Pardon me?
Training session.
Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.